They told us the Vael were monsters. They showed us images. 7 feet tall, silver skinned, eyes like split moons. They played recordings of their battle cries and called it proof. They handed us rifles and told us that proof was enough. I believed them. I believed them right up until the moment I found one bleeding out in the wreckage of her own ship. And she used the last of her strength not to fight me, but to shield a child. My name is Sergeant Marcus Black. 6 years in the Terran Expeditionary Corps, 3 combat deployments, commendations I stopped counting after year 2. And this is the story of 18 hours that changed everything I thought I knew about war, about enemies, and about what it actually means to be human. It started with an ambush, our squad. 8 soldiers, 2 armored transports, 1 mission. We had been tasked with securing a research outpost on Mira's Cradle, a dead moon orbiting a gas giant at the edge of contested space. No atmosphere to speak of, gravity at 60%, the kind of place where the rocks are sharper than the knives and the cold gets into your bones, even through the suit. We were 4 clicks from the outpost when the first missile hit. Corporal Jenna Yates was driving. She didn't make it. Neither did the transport. I remember the explosion more than anything. Not the sound, because sound doesn't carry right in thin atmosphere, but the light. White, then orange, then a silence so total it felt like the moon itself was holding its breath. I came to on my back, 30 meters from the wreckage, helmet cracked across the left visor, suit screaming warnings. I didn't have time to read. The Razkai had found us. Not the Vael, our official enemy, the ones Command had been fighting for 2 years. No, the Razkai were something else. A third faction. Scavengers. Pirates. Opportunists. Whatever you want to call a species that profits from the other people's wars. They had no loyalty, no code, and no interest in prisoners. They just wanted the outpost energy core, and they were willing to kill every living thing on that moon to get it. I found 3 of my squad still breathing in the debris field. Corporal Singh, Private Okafor, and Lieutenant Reyes, who had a broken arm and was already trying to tape a tourniquet around it with her teeth. Black. Reyes looked at me with the calm that only comes from too many near-death experiences. We are extremely out of options. She wasn't wrong. No transport, no long-range comms. The antenna had gone up with the second vehicle. Emergency beacon activated, but rescue was 12 hours out at minimum. Razkai scouts were already moving through the wreckage behind us, and then, through the smoke, half a kilometer east, I saw the Vael ship go down. It wasn't a warship, too small. A courier vessel, maybe, or a scout. It had taken fire from somewhere, clipped one of its rear drives, and come down hard in a shallow crater near what was left of a frozen lake. Reyes grabbed my arm. "Don't," she said. "They're enemies." "So are the Razkai," I said, "and the Razkai outnumber us 6-1. She held my gaze for a long second. Then she let go. I moved alone, low and fast, using the debris field as cover, keeping one eye on the Razkai scouts and one eye on the crashed ship. The cold was already working through the crack in my visor. Not dangerous yet, but a reminder. Time was not my friend. I found the airlock blown open. Emergency oxygen still venting from a ruptured line. Inside, two Vael soldiers, both dead from the crash. A navigation console sparking in the dark. And at the back of the cabin, wedged behind an overturned equipment rack, her. She was tall, even crumpled against the wall. I could tell she'd stand a head above me at full height. Silver gray skin, the color of old ice. The bioluminescent markings I had seen in the military briefings were real. Faint blue lines tracing her jaw, her collarbone, the back of her hands. But right now, they were dim, barely glowing, which I would later meant she was in pain. She had a wound in her side, deep. She packed it with something from a med kit, but the pack was already soaked through. And in her arms, pressed against her chest, face hidden, making no sound at all, was a child. Small, maybe a third her size. The same silver skin, but the markings were gold instead of blue. Bright, even in the dark, flickering slightly with each tiny breath. The Vael female looked at me. Her eyes were exactly as, like the briefing said, split pupils, amber gold iris, no white. They should have looked alien, dangerous, wrong. They looked terrified. Not of me, or not only of me. She was listening to something outside, something getting closer. She pulled the child tighter and said something in Vael, low, fast, urgent. I didn't speak of a word of it, but I didn't need to. She was asking me if I was going to kill them. I lowered my rifle. Getting her moving was the first problem. The wound in her side was bad enough that standing hurt. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened, in the sudden flare of her bioluminescent markings every time she shifted weight. But she moved anyway, because she could also hear the Razkai getting closer, and she was smart enough to know that staying meant dying. The child, I still didn't know if it was hers, or just someone that she was protecting, would not let go of her. So she carried it, one arm around the small body, one hand pressed to her wound, moving at maybe 60% of what she could have managed healthy. I took point. We couldn't talk. We had no shared language and no time to invent one. What we had instead was gesture, eye contact, and the universal body language of people who are trying very hard not to die. I pointed at threats. She nodded. She pointed at directions. I followed or shook my head. It was the most communication I'd ever managed with someone I'd been told was the enemy. We linked up with Reyes, Singh, and Okafor at the debris field. Singh had his rifle up before I even cleared the rocks. Black, what the hell? Lower it, I said. She's Vael. She's also why we're not walking into a Razkai ambush right now. Lower the rifle. A long pause, then Singh lowered it. He didn't look happy. None of them did. But they were professionals. And professionals read the situation. The situation was, we had a common enemy, and we had one route to the emergency pod. 18 kilometers. Razkai between us and it. One wounded alien, one alien child, 4 human soldiers running low on ammo and time. We moved out. The next 4 hours were the longest of my life. The Razke had numbers, and they had decent weapons, but they didn't have discipline. They moved in clusters, got loud when they were excited, and had a bad habit of rushing positions before confirming what was in them. In another life, under better circumstances, they would have been easy. Under these circumstances, with 4 humans and 2 Vael crossing 18 clicks of exposed moonscape, they were almost enough. Almost. Okafor was the first to spot what the Vael female, I had started thinking of her as Silver because I needed something to call her in my own head, was actually capable of. We pinned down in a crater rim, Razke closing from 2 sides, and I was doing the math and not liking the answers. Then Silver made a sound, low, resonant, something that vibrated in my chest more than my ears, and pointed at a specific point on the left flank. I looked, didn't see anything. She made the sound again, pointed harder. I trusted her. Singh shifted left, covering that angle. 30 seconds later, Razke came through exactly that gap, exactly where she'd said. "She can hear them," Ogfer said, voice hushed with something between fear and wonder. "Through the rock! She can hear them through the rock!" The next 10 hours, Silver was our early warning system, and we were her firepower. It was the strangest combat partnership I have ever been a part of, and somehow, against every odd, it worked. We lost Okafor 6 kilometers from the pod. Not to the Razke, to the terrain. A fissure opened up under a frozen patch, the kind of thing that happens on geologically unstable moons, and he went down before any of us could grab him. Reyes got his hand for a moment, then she didn't. We kept moving. You always keep moving. You have to. The hardest moment came 3 kilometers out. The child. I still didn't know its name, its age, nothing. Had been silent the whole journey, trusting, watching everything with those gold-lit eyes. But 3 kilometers from the pod, in the narrow pass between 2 rock formations, the child made a sound. A short, high tone. Silver went rigid. I looked at her. She looked at me. Then she looked at the child, and something moved across her face, across those split pupil eyes that I have no word for in English and didn't need one. Every parent in the history of the universe would have recognized it. Fear. The specific, bottomless fear of watching someone small and helpless and yours be in danger. There are Razkai in the pass, 6 of them, waiting. We couldn't go around. The terrain was impassable, and we had maybe 40 minutes of suit oxygen left. We had to go through. What happened in that pass took 11 minutes. I've replayed it 100 times since, and it still doesn't feel real. What I know? Singh went left. I went right. Reyes went center. Silver stayed behind the outcropping with the child, which was the plan. She was in no condition to fight, and protecting the child was the mission. What I did not expect, when the Razke flanked us, when 2 of them got around Singh and had a clear line on my back, Silver put the child down, told it something in a voice so quiet and firm it sounded like a promise, and came out of cover. She was wounded. She could barely stand. She took out both of them with her bare hands. Vael biology is not like human biology. I know that now in great detail. In the moment, all I knew was the two Razke who had been about to kill me were suddenly not a problem, and Silver was back behind the outcropping before I had fully processed what I'd seen. When I looked at her, she just pointed forward. Keep moving. We kept moving. The emergency pod bay was exactly where the nav said it would be. The pod was intact. The pod fit 6, enough for all of us, and then some. Getting the Vael aboard was the hardest argument I've ever made in sign language, but Reyes backed me up, and Singh, who had stopped arguing somewhere around kilometer 12, just climbed in, strapped down without a word. The pod launched at 040 hours Terran Standard. I sat across from Silver in the tight confines of the cabin, the child asleep across her lap, her wound redressed with everything we had left in the medkit. She was watching me with those split pupil eyes. Not hostile, not afraid, calculating. After a long moment, she reached across the space between us, slow, deliberate, making sure I could see the movement, and placed one hand flat on my chest, over my heart. She held it there for 3 seconds. Then she pulled back and looked away. I don't speak Vael. I didn't need to. Command debriefed me for 9 hours when we got back. They were very interested in the Vael, very interested in what I'd observed, very interested in whether I thought an alliance was possible. I told them, stop asking me. Ask her. Silver, her actual name when a translator finally worked it out, was something like a harmonic chord in a frequency humans can feel, but not quite reproduce. Was debriefed separately. The child, as it turned out, was not hers. It was the child of the ship's navigator, who had died in the crash. She had shielded it as an instinct, as a reflex, the way you would. She was returned to Vael-controlled space 6 weeks later as part of a prisoner exchange that also, quietly, without a press release, included the first direct communication between the Terran Expeditionary Corps and the Vael High Council. Singh told me later he'd heard that the child's family was found, alive. I don't know if any of that changed the war. I don't know if it changed anything on paper. I know what it changed in me. They told us the Vael were monsters. Maybe some of them are. But the one I met used the last of her strength to protect a child that wasn't even hers, on a moon where nobody was watching, with no reason to expect anything in return. I've served with humans who would not have done the same.